Alright, so I was just editing the last video and the thought came to me to make another video. So here we go. Right now I have COVID. I think I do because my brother, my sister, and my mom have it. And so, anyway, all I got is a little snotty nose and something in my throat, but I have time to make another video, so no reason not to. So, what I wanted to talk about is that so often I think it's really common that we forget to consider people that are not in our same position. I think it's just a condition of human nature. But the most damaging thing to the growth of the church, because I really believe, and I will say this 100 times over, this is the Church of Jesus Christ. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is his restored church on the earth. He is in charge of it, and his goal is to take all churches and make them into one. And that will be his church. He will be the Lord. He will be the good pastor. All these things that he's promised. He'll lead us and guide us. So our goal is to take the church that he has established in our modern day. He is asking us to take that to the world. We've been fighting this fight, trying to establish our legitimacy, basically. And it seems as if we're trying to conquer, And I think that's the wrong way to look at it, the wrong way to approach it. I'm not sure, obviously this is not the intention. When you look at Jesus Christ himself and his prophet he's chosen and the apostles, they have the same intention as Jesus Christ. Us, as the members of the church, might have a harder time visualizing the concept. And so I think a lot of times we're more combative than we are inviting. Because we believe so strongly in our doctrine and we know it's true, we sometimes let that cloud our minds to the point where we won't accept anything besides that truth. Which obviously the truth is the truth, no matter who says it or where it comes from. I think it's an important thing to realize though, that some people on the outside might have a certain perception of our actions, of who we are and our character, and whether or not that's true or not is subjective. But what we can never do is take the responsibility away from ourselves to change that perception. We cannot control how someone thinks of us, but we can change how they see us. And that's the key. So anyway, let me go and tell a story really quick. So I was serving my mission in Philadelphia. We were volunteering with this church. Such an interesting situation. It taught me so much. Basically, there's this church that has this food pantry that they operate daily. The person that works there, that's in charge of it, he's the coordinator. He's actually an atheist, but previously was a Christian. He grew up in the church. He grew up actually serving in the church. He did missionary work, the whole 9 yards. And at some point, he just decided that it was all fake because he saw so much hypocrisy. Basically, he decided it couldn't be real. And he's a really smart guy, and actually brought up so many things that made me think and question. Not doubt, but question. There's a difference between questioning and doubting. A question is something that you're looking for an answer to. A doubt is something that you already assuming is true. When you doubt something, you're basically you're exhibiting the arrogance to have someone else prove it to you when you would need to find the answer yourself. A question is more sincere and you believe there's an answer. So that's that to clear it up basically. So if you have questions, you're not a bad person. Just don't try and be don't be so quick to doubt things, but really just question everything and you'll find better answers. So anyway, this guy, he obviously had a lot of questions and he found some pretty substantial answers. Obviously, he didn't have experience in the true church of Jesus Christ, but what he did have was experience with other humble followers of the faith, I guess, and some that were not so humble. And he saw basically saw different sides of the story from different people, and basically realized that that a lot of church and religion these days is just a scam. And I agree with that. I agree with that statement. And I'm not going to exempt the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints either. I'm going to say that the organization and the structure is perfect and it comes from God. The people in the church are not perfect. And some of them, very few, but some people in every single church organization or religion or anywhere some people are influenced by Satan and they're infiltrating in order to try and bring down the church. So that's that. It's not just a problem unique to the Catholic Church or any other religion. Like, I think the Catholic Church is more famous for like egregious things that have happened in their past. But it's not a unique thing. It's happened in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints as well, which we consider ourselves to be the standard, but it's like we have to take accountability as well. So before I keep going further off track, I just wanted to say that sometimes we forget to consider what is the viewpoint of someone on the outside and what are reasons why they might look at us as a group and consider that it's not the right fit for them. What are things that would make it so that whether they're already Christian, already believe in God, don't believe in God, or believe in other things, what are things that they would perceive about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that would stop them from pursuing it further? And once you start thinking, you're going to actually see a lot. But one time, working at this food bank, I met this guy. There's a lot of homeless people and less fortunate people that come through. This guy, he's a younger guy, but like older than me. He had a kid, I think he told me. Wife and a kid. He was basically this homeless guy, but he was not even 30. He's in his later 20s. He walks in to the thing, and I see he's got the same shoes as me. So I'm like, hey man, we got the same shoes. We start talking, and he was so excited to share with me about how he's like been able to turn his life around and everything. And I tell him that I'm a missionary for the church, and I pull out like a card, I think, and then he's like, but do you guys tell the truth, or what do you guys do? And somehow I just like intuitively knew what he was saying, because I had the experience and almost like a struggle of having to reconstruct all my beliefs, because in the early stages of my mission, I was super driven and motivated, but like lacking the focus to know what exactly to do. One thing that I kept running into were people that knew verses of the Bible that seemed to contradict what I believed, or at least what, not for me necessarily, but for the people that were bringing the verses up. They're like saying, this proves that your church is false or that the Book of Mormon is false. So I took it upon myself. I was like, me having never read the Bible before, I took it upon myself to read the New Testament. I read it once within the first few months of my mission, and then after that, I read it again. The first time I read it because I wanted to find every single verse in every instance where I could prove that what I'm saying is true. But as I started doing that, my heart started to soften as I learned about Jesus, and I learned about the gospel that he taught in Jerusalem. And as I read it the second time, I was so like thirsty. I was hungry almost to know like everything, but in a way that would fill my heart, basically. And as I did that, it started to introduce a new light to me. Basically, I was changing as a person, and it didn't like make my beliefs any weaker. It made them all stronger. So in my journey to reconstruct my faith, I built it up stronger. And anyway, so at this point, I had read through the whole New Testament, and I understood what he was saying. And I've heard a lot of what other churches teach and what they believe. And the most common thing is for churches, they're really concerned about membership and about, obviously they want to bring the gospel to as many people as possible. So they refrain from mentioning the things that are more difficult. Yeah? Anyway, so I think I lost where I was at, but I was talking just about what the churches teach and how they really want to bring people in with the most wholesome message possible. And a lot of times they'll hold back the punch of the tougher things to swallow. So basically, that being of like all the destruction, the calamities, and everything that's going to happen to the earth. They just wanted to teach about the good news of the gospel, which is it's understandable. And anyway, how about no sex? Oh my gosh. Anyway, how about no sex? Give me 2 seconds so you can. I think he's gone. Anyway. Oh no, he's not gone. Can't. Hey, are you feeling better or the same? My brother also has coronavirus, so that's what's going on. And we're back. So anyway, basically this guy was asking me that question of like, he's had the experience of being in other churches, where he knows one thing, and he's like, obviously the most important thing is to warn everyone of what's going to happen and then guide them to be able to make the right choice to protect and save themselves. That's like literally the goal. But sometimes it seems like we're just like, we're telling them all the happy sunshine stuff to make them feel good, but we're avoiding like the actual the meat and the bones of the issue here. So he noticed that in other churches, and he asked me if we teach the like, and not, like, he's like, do you guys tell the truth? Like, do you teach what about all this stuff? And he mentioned a few things. I'm like, and I was able to say yes, yes, yes. Like, and I was answering in the sense of yes, we believe all those things. I knew like what he was talking about. But anyway, I couldn't help but think is like most of the meetings that we have, we don't end up talking about stuff like that. The only things we talk about, we have a few messages prepared in the sacrament meeting, and a majority of those messages are talks that people just reread and then add a few extra points, and they're just kind of droning on. And then if it's not that, it's a testimony meeting where we get drilled over and over and over again about how the Book of Mormon is true, Joseph Smith is a prophet, and the church is true. And then we keep hearing these generic, like, it's almost like if the church had its own Great Value brand, which I guess it does. What's it called? I forget what the church's food production thing is called. But whatever that thing is like the church's Great Value brand of spiritual messages is like what we keep hearing over and over and over again. We go to Sunday school, we read out of the manual, and man, so the funniest thing happened one time. So there's the Come Follow Me program, which if you're in the church, you understand what that is. It's a guide for reading the scriptures that we're all supposed to be doing together. And so in class, we go over what was the reading from this whole last week, which in my opinion, if someone didn't read it, then like move on. Talk about what's going to come up instead of talking about what we already read. Anyway, but that's just my opinion. So what happens is that a lot of the members of the church have grown up and been conditioned in a way in this culture where they understand intuitively what we're talking about, just because they've heard the stories, they've read the scriptures sometimes. And what happens when you bring someone new into the church to visit is that they have no idea what's going on, like absolutely lost. So this last year, we're going over the Doctrine and Covenants, and it has a lot of history and a lot of important protocol, I guess, for running the church, because Joseph Smith had to do it from scratch. And so he had to receive a lot of information that would help him to organize the church in the way it is organized still to this day. And so we're going over this section, and this section, the whole lesson was about the Shakers, which is like literally a non-existent religion in our day that believed that Jesus came back in the form of a girl or like something like that. And in my mind, I'm like first of all, who cares? And that's kind of more like on the rude side of disrespectful and like me personally. But we have so many people that are investigating, trying to find if this is the answer for them in their lives, for their spiritual journey. And we're talking about the false beliefs of other religions. And like so there's the one side of like not understanding anything that's going on. The other side is that if you kind of get to piece together what we're talking about, you're gonna realize that we're bashing on someone else's like church and belief. If it's wrong, it's wrong. You know, like it's their belief could be false, but there's no point of like all the members are sounding off, going like, yeah, they believe this and that's wrong and that's wrong. The teacher's like, yeah, and it's like, anyway, it wasn't in that spirit of like inciting hateful whatever towards any group, but it was like it could have been perceived that way if you just looked at it. And anyway, so I laugh at it because I know for a fact that people that were visiting didn't really understand what was being taught, but if they did, it could have been dangerous, and that's what kind of made it funny. But anyway, so that's the question I want to ask to everyone and to myself is like, why don't we talk about these things? And more importantly, there's another aspect I want to talk about. Why don't we do certain things? So this church that I was volunteering at in Philly. No, I wasn't even in Philly at that point. I was out in like northern, where was it, in Pennsylvania? Somewhere in Pennsylvania. It's called Allentown, and Bethlehem is the other area which we worked in. So in Pennsylvania, I guess. I wasn't even in Philly at that point. This church has this thing it's running. It's paying. It's like it's funded obviously by the members of the church's own efforts, but Um, anyway, if you've ever been, if you are a member of the church, you understand. If you've ever been to an activity, maybe you'll kind of grasp. But like in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we have so many social gatherings, and the goal is to bring people together, obviously, so we can all have a harmonious spirit of unity and all these beautiful things. But what we rarely ever do, so we have the bishop's storehouse, which is like the place where people that are in need of food, they can go and register, I guess, with the bishop and get approval to get food for free. But it's a program that's only known about in the church, and it's you have to go talk to the leader of the church, basically. So if you don't even know who that is, then good luck. What we never do, we have funding. We donate tithing because that's the law of the gospel. If you don't like tithing, you just don't understand it, and I'll maybe explain it in another video. We give our tithing. The church has this money and allocates it for different expenditures, resources, and programs. What we don't do is we don't use our funding to join forces with other organizations that already exist to provide community service. And what we do is we use that money to buy hot dogs and who knows what else, cookies, and have parties at the church. And that's all good and whatever. That's not a bad thing, but we are missing out on a bigger point. And so it's like we're doing the same thing as what other churches have done that people have seen as hypocritical. So it's not with the intention of being evil, but we're doing something that could be perceived as inconsiderate or whatever. Obviously, there are individuals in the church that provide service to the community. There are even activities or things that the church does to provide service. The church actually does more humanitarian work than any other organization, basically, in the world. But it's like on a local level, we all sit around basically and allow for the church to do all these things and run all these programs. There are people doing the work, but we ourselves, as in like the normal member of the church at like the bottom level of like the local level, we don't do much, and that kind of struck me. I was thinking, why should, for example, there's like the youth activities. I think kids should be allowed to have fun, but it's like, at what point are like when are they going to learn a valuable lesson of like what it takes to be kind of like a savior in someone else's life? You're trying to bring Jesus Christ light to other people's lives, and by having all these fun parties and stuff, like of course it's self-indulging, but it's like there's a good benefit to it of having friends and stuff. But what if you and all your friends once in a while like were taken by your church leaders to go do service for someone that needed it in like a food bank or something? And what if that was like a more frequently occurring thing? So that's my qualm, I guess, with church programs and how they're run right now. Obviously, each individual has the choice if they want to go do service, but if it was more institutionalized or like it was more like a structured program in the church, I only see benefit coming from that. Like, what if we were to buy clothing and shoes and stuff for people that don't have it, and it's like instead of throwing a party for ourselves like we always do. Anyway, that is it. That's like my thing that I want to call to everyone's attention is like, if there is, so if you watch the last video, I talk about how it's like a mathematical thing too, but like when you're trying to solve a problem, if you have the answer or you have the result, you can work your way back and see how the math is done or how everything worked out. If we're looking to bring the Lord's kingdom to the earth and construct it and establish it, and it's going to be perfect, and it's going to be like the golden standard that everyone will be able to feel like they belong and find God's love and develop as a person, what kind of things does that church have? And what kind of things does our church have currently? We are we as in the organization, like I am not the church. No one is the church, but like we're all included in it. It's the body of Christ. What things are existing in our current organization that are going to lead to that, and what things are existing in the current organization that are going to slow us down from becoming that? I'm going to make a statement, and this is just me, but although we are the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we are not yet his church that he meant to establish. Like it's a work in progress. The church, as he envisions it, is going to resemble almost nothing of what it is right now, in my opinion. It will include so many diverse cultures across the whole world, and all the whole spectrum of cultures and people. Everyone will be represented. All these cultures will be brought into the church to the point where it'll be unrecognizable, except for the fact it'll have the same structure that I was talking about, of a prophet, apostles, leaders of the church, and us as members. That will be consistent. But anyway, so that's my thought, is like, what can we do to become that? What are we doing right now that's going to slow us down? And if we have that frame of mind, we're going to move so much faster than what we're currently doing. Trying to prove everyone that to everyone that Joseph Smith was a prophet and the Book of Mormon is true. If we talk about everything that's going to happen to the earth, all the danger that's coming, and what we can do to prepare for it and maybe avoid some danger, the stuff that's already written in the Bible, people will start to listen, I think, and start to really take into their own account of like, wow, I need to change. I need to learn more about this. At some point, they're going to have the question of, how do you know all this? Where is this all coming from? And at which point we can just tell them, like, okay, yeah, well, the gospel was restored to Joseph Smith. If that's our first message, it's almost like we're forcing them to try and believe in Joseph Smith instead of Jesus Christ. I'm going to make another video, maybe even right after this, about how conversion works. And this is like the thing that most missionaries would kill to know and would kill to understand. And I think I came to understand the concept very well. What does conversion look like, and how does it come to be? How do people decide to change and to accept the gospel and to become a new creature, basically? Like Kobe Bryant said, a different animal but the same beast. And then Kevin Hart goes like, what the freak does that mean, Kobe Bryant? Anyway, that's just random, but that's what I'm going to try and explain, I guess. So that's the video for right now. And then I'm going to make another video after this. So stay tuned.